So this has been an awesome year for the AMP project. And one of the areas that we have made a lot of progress has been on building AMP content creation in the WordPress platform. What is this? This is, I need this. As you know, WordPress is a content management system. And what that means is that it is a software platform that adds layers of abstraction on top of the web to facilitate the creation, management, and publishing of content. Okay? WordPress is certainly one of the biggest CMS players out there. And today, about a third of the web is powered by WordPress sites. Now, AMP first content creation in WordPress falls into a spectrum where, on one hand, we have a fully manual process where we, as developers, do all the work. And on the other hand, we have a fully automatic process where the platform, with a combination of core and extensions, does all the work for us. Now, the reality of what is possible today is a balance point somewhere in that spectrum where a lot of the process can be automatically generated, and there is still part of the process that requires developer intervention. Now, the exact location of that point depends on the status of the ecosystem with respect to AMP compatibility. And as the ecosystem evolves with time, that balance point is going to move further and further to maximizing automation and minimizing developer intervention. Now, a key enabling technology influencing the compatibility status of the WordPress ecosystem is the official AMP plugin for WordPress. The official AMP plugin for WordPress is an extension to the WordPress platform that plays three main roles. It automates large parts of the process of generating AMP content on the platform. It provides developer tooling and guidance for helping developers on the parts that they have to do themselves. And it also acts as a monitor and enforcer as well as sites evolve to maintain AMP compatibility. Now, on the automation part of the equation, the plugin provides four main areas of functionality. The first one is integrating the AMP specification into the plugin logic so that it becomes effectively a WordPress-centric AMP validator. Okay? And that allows it to identify errors and contextualize them. In WordPress, content can be generated in different ways. You have widgets, embeds, blocks, and you name it. The WordPress plugin hooks its functionality into these standards mechanisms in which content is created in WordPress and generates uncompatible components instead, whenever possible. Now, there are parts of the code that WordPress generates that could be generated also in terms of AMP-compatible components, but cannot be done during template rendering. For these cases, what the plugin does is it takes the output of the template rendering phase, puts it into an output buffer, it parses it into a DOM document, and then applies a lot of, sorry, I had to click, applies a set of processing and conversion tasks. At the end of this functionality, the end result is a piece of AMP content that may or may not be AMP compatible, AMP valid. Depending on that outcome, then the plugin triggers one of several serving strategies that aim at minimizing the probability that AMP invalid content is going to be served. Now, this functionality has to do with the assistant generation part, and we don't have to worry about it. Instead, we have to focus our attention on the workflow for creating AMP first experiences in WordPress. In this part, this is the part related to developer intervention. The first aspect that we need to understand is how the plugin integrates with the WordPress template system. In WordPress, the look and feel of sites is defined by a collection of templates that, when combined together, form what is usually called the theme of the site. The plugin can be configured to interact with the underlying theme of a site in three different ways. In native mode, the AMP plugin effectively makes AMP the framework of your WordPress site. It reuses the underlying theme, templates and styles of your site, and render only AMP responses. That means that your site's AMP first, and the canonical URL is also your AMP URL. There may be cases in which you cannot make all the content of your site AMP compatible at once for all your content types. In those cases, you have the option of opting out of AMP for certain parts of your site, or you can take advantage of the plugin transitional mode. In transitional mode, the plugin also reuses the underlying templates of your theme, but in this case, it renders both an AMP version of the content and a non-AMP version of the content. And you, as a developer, make the decision on what goes in one or the other. Notice that this mode is called transitional because it's intended and providing you with a migration path that allows you to progressively expand the AMP compatibility of your site until you get to a point in which everything is AMP compatible, and then you can switch to an AMP first strategy. In this case, for example, the sites are exactly the same, except for the text-to-speech widget that we had on the non-AMP version that we were not able to fully convert, and we want to have it because it's an accessibility feature that we want to provide to our users. Still, there may be cases, both the native and the transitional mode, depending on the theme that you are using, require some developer work in order to make it fully uncompatible. There may be cases in which you want to provide AMP experiences to at least some content in your site, but you don't have the resources to invest on the development required for the native or the transitional mode at this moment. In these cases, you can take advantage of the plugin reader mode. In reader mode, the plugin generates the plugin generates content using separate templates that are simple, that are liked, that are neat, but may not match the design of your underlying theme. This mode is useful to provide basic AMP experiences, but we actually don't recommend it because it's restrictive. And given that as time passes, moving to a transitional or native mode is getting easier and easier, there is no reason to stay in this mode for long, but it's an option that is provided. We understand with this how to interact, how the plugin interacts with the template system of your site, with the theme. The next step is to understand the development workflow. So how do we go to making sites AMP compatible in WordPress? The first step is identifying any validation errors that your site may have. Are there problems that my site has? The second part is contextualizing those errors. What are those errors coming from? Was it a plugin? Was it a theme? Was it the core platform? It's very important to know so that we can go and deal with them. And finally, we need to amplify the offending markup elements in our site so that the validation errors can be eliminated without compromising the functionality or the visual parity of your site, the visual functionality of your site. This screenshot here gives you a glimpse of how content creation in WordPress looks nowadays. The WordPress editor is a block-based editor, which means that everything is a block. The blue rectangle that you see on the screen is a custom HTML block, and in there we have put a piece of content that is not valid. When we try to update this content, the plugin identifies the error and immediately flags it in context, telling us that there is something wrong with the content that you just created. And it also offers us information on the top telling us that we need to investigate the issue. In this particular case, it's very easy to see the error at the context because we created it and we have it in front of us. But in WordPress, as I mentioned before, content can be created in many different ways. And contextualizing errors can be a difficult task. Luckily, the plugin does all the work for us. What the plugin does, as I mentioned, it hooks itself into the standard content creation mechanism of WordPress And as the markup is generated, it annotates it with HTML comments. At the moment that a validation error is encountered during the validation process, the plugin walks back the DOM tree until, using the HTML comments, it can determine the particular source of the error and some contextual information for that particular problem. It then creates a validation error object containing the context information and then stores it in the database to expose it to the user, as we will see in a minute. Once the plugin has identified and contextualized the errors, the next part is, what do we do with them? The plugin can be configured in two different ways to handle the errors. You can configure it to do automatic sanitization, which means that the plugin is going to remove the offending markup from your site. This doesn't mean that the plugin is fixing the error. It's just removing the offending markup so that the page remains valid. We still need to make sure that the functionality or the visual parity is there. Or you can configure the plugin to do manual sanitization, which means, please, you tell the plugin, keep the offending code, because I don't have a solution for it right now, and the functionality that it implements is important for my site, like the text-to-speech widget that we saw. The ultimate fate of a validation error, or the markup that is creating a validation error, is your jurisdiction. As a developer, you decide what to do. You can either accept the plugin action, which basically you are telling the plugin, it's OK, you can take that markup away because I don't need it. It's not essential for my site. Or, no worry, I have an AMP-compatible solution for it. Let's get going. Or you can say, oof, no, please don't remove that offending markup because I don't have a solution right now and I need it in my site. So let's not have AMP at this moment. The plugin puts all these capabilities at the fingertips of developers via a compatibility tool that is accessible in the admin screen of your site. I'm not going to, right now, go into the details of the compatibility tool too much, but it gives you all the details of each validation error. What is the status respect to the plugin, the user action? It was accepted or it was rejected. It also tells you the source of each error. Was a theme? Was a plugin? Which plugin is injecting that piece of markup that is causing a problem? And what is the error type? Is it a CSS error? Is it an HTML error? JavaScript? And so on. And then you can interact with the errors directly with this UI. You can, as a user, as a developer, you can decide what to do with the errors there. Up to here, we have a very good idea of the capabilities of the plugin. Now let's put everything together, going over a simple but real-world example of how to make a theme AMP-compatible. Depending on the characteristics of your theme, the amount of work that requires to achieve this may vary. But although this example is not too complex, it gives you a very good idea of the workflow that you have to follow to make your theme AMP-compatible. The starting point is a baseline theme. It's a theme that we have tested the functionality that we want, and it's important that it has functional fallbacks so that it works properly when JavaScript is disabled by the browser. So we are starting from a good place. This theme in particular is the 2013 core theme. It's a classic simple WordPress theme with a site identity section. You have a search box. You have a hamburger menu when you are in certain form factors. You have images. You have galleries, YouTube embeds, widgets. It's typical thing that you have in WordPress content. The first step is we install and activate the plugin. We go to the admin screen. We go to the settings. I'm going to configure it in transitional mode because I want to progressively move to AMP first. I'm going to keep the errors there to see how they behave. And then I'm going to save the changes. At the moment that I save the change, the plugin immediately notifies me that it has identified some issues in my site, and I have to look at it. So the next step, then, I have to go and see what's going on. The way that we do this is that we go and pick one of the posts. because we are in transitional mode, this is the non-AMP version. We can access the AMP version from the admin screen. We say view AMP version. Immediately, the plugin tells us this is not valid AMP. So we want to go to the compatibility tool to see what's going on. At this point, we see, wow, we have 8 errors. And here we can see that the plugin is telling us that AMP is disabled for the particular post because you don't have valid AMP. I'm going to give you a quick summary of the errors that are here so we don't waste too much time. But if you concentrate on the sources and type columns to the right of the first window, you can see that there are 2 CSS errors that are introduced by the theme. And these are related to viewport add rules that, in this case, are easy to deal with because they are not needed, and we can wipe them out. Then we have the following 4 errors are JavaScript errors that are attributed to the core platform, but are actually triggered because the plugin is using certain functionality that has dependencies that the core platform injects into the theme, into the markup. So we have that information there. And at the end, then we have 2 JavaScript errors that are actually triggered by JavaScript files that the theme integrated. So this is probably the most important because that is that the theme developer put the functionality that they want there. So OK, now we have a good idea what's happening. The next step then is we are going to isolate the errors to see how they affect my site. The way to do this is that you go and you accept all the errors, causing the plugin to remove all the offending markup. And then you can see how it changed. And now we are going to use the preview capability to see how it's behaving. You can see that in the admin bar, the plugin made the page valid. Now we have the same. Visually, it looks pretty much the same. The search box works, so that's good. Now let's go to device mode and make sure that everything works. The search box still works, so that's not a problem. Oh, but this is not working. So this is telling me that one of the markup invalid elements that the plugin removed actually had the functionality that implemented the hamburger menu. So the next step then is we need to go and fix the errors. In this particular case, the things that we need to do are, first, let's get rid of the add rules, the viewport add rules that are not needed. Oops, I need to click this one. I know where that thing is because I saw the line, so I'm going to remove them. And then I'm going to go to the functions.php file. I'm going to create a function that tells me if I am rendering an AMP response or not. It's called 2013 is AMP endpoint. And I'm going to use it to grab around the pieces of code that are injecting the JavaScript files in the theme. And I'm going to prevent that from happening if I am rendering an AMP response. Okay? That's that code that I. And finally, we are going to solve the hamburger menu problem by telling the plugin that this theme supports AMP. We use the AMP theme support. We pass the AMP parameter. This is a standard function in WordPress. And then the next parameter, the pair equals true, tells the plugin that this theme is operating in transitional mode. And then we use the nav menu toggle parameter to pass information to the plugin that is associated with the markup that contains the navigation menu. And what this means is that most themes like this in WordPress has some kind of implementation that handles the hamburger menu as we saw. And we noticed that the implementations are very similar. So what we did is we put functionality into the plugin to implement the same functionality in terms of compatible components using AMP bind. And then we just tell the plugin, this is the piece of the navigation menu that I want you to deal with. And the plugin automatically does it for us. So these are the fixes. The next step then is see if these things work. OK, so we go. We do the recheck, and fingers crossed, now it works. So all the errors are gone. Now I have to verify that the functionality is actually restored. So everything looks fine. Trust me, I check the other functionality. And then I'm going to, I have valid AMP. This is good. Go to device mode. And the hamburger menu is working. So at this point, I solve all the errors for this post. So the non-AMP version and the AMP version are identical. So I don't have a reason to have 2 versions of the code. So the next step and final step is graduating this theme to AMP first. Big day for the 2013. And this is as simple as going to the AMP theme support function that we introduced and changing pair from true to false. And at that moment, you have an AMP first site. So with this, give you a very good sense of how to use the plugin. And I would like to invite Jeanny to give us a taste of how the plugin is being used in the wild.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeanny from the Online Partnership Group here in Google. Our team works with publishers and help them grow their business sustainably. And I've been with the team with a little bit over 4 years now, and I realize how dynamic and competitive the publishing industry is. Publishers are constantly challenged to upgrade their offerings to win their users. And when it comes to winning your users, what are the one thing that you should avoid? So we ask your user, and we ask them about one thing that they dislike the most when browsing your website. And coming from the ad business, I always thought that it will be ads. But majority of your user vote for slow website. In fact, we are not alone, and there's a lot of study that suggests a correlation between speed and bounce rate. The longer you make your user wait, the higher the bounce rate will be. Now, while it's really imperative that speed should be the #1 priority when it comes to upgrading your website, after working with publishers, I realized that not everybody are as lucky as you guys. Not everybody have the technical capability or bandwidth or able to justify the technical bandwidth to upgrade their website hard-tuned way and meet the needs of their users. And this is the gap that I wish to fill, and this is why we built the AMP plugin. Our goal is to democratize speed and making sure that speed is accessible to all WordPress users. And we're really happy to see success story from early adopters. And today, I would like to do 2 things. I would like to share some of stories of publishers who upgrade their user experiences using our plugin. And not only that, most importantly, I would like to highlight work from ecosystem player like you that bring this success a reality. So first thing first, I would like to share a story about Times of India. Of course, you know them as one of the largest publishers in India, reaching over 400 million unique visitors. And they have a blog website they made of WordPress, and they decided to test full AMP experiences on their blog. And of course, when it comes to converting their page to legacy code, there's always unexpected challenges in which they have to face CSS constraint, and they have to find a workaround for third-party JavaScript. In this, they leverage our plugin to assist them on the development, and they did it. They managed to reach 59% improvement in loading speed. And not only that, Mr. Rudra Kasuri, who unfortunately cannot join us today, actually shared that they see an uplift in page view within the first week of implementation. In fact, if you guys would like to see the native mode in action, I really recommend guys to try to open Times of India blog. The whole blog is actually empowered by AMP. And next one, I would like to share a story about JavaPost. They are one of reputable names in Indonesia, and they started their business in print since 1949. Only recently, in 2017, they decided to go digital and launch javapost.com. Soon, they realized that speed, web performance are crucial to win their users. And because they would like to test AMP, they decided, after several considerations, to test on the transitional mode. And why transitional mode? Because they want to have an identical copy of the AMP and the non-AMP version so that they can do an apple-to-apple comparison in terms of their KPI achievement. And I'm really happy to say that the AMP version have 10 times lighter page, and not only that, they reported a higher revenue per ad impression by 38%. So I'm really happy for them, and we are right now in the process of thinking about moving to the native AMP. And so we have seen an example of native AMP in Times of India. We saw an example of transitional mode in JavaPost. And I would like to share an example of reader mode. Meet hellosehat.com. They are actually one of the largest healthcare publishers in Indonesia. They have about 30 million unique visitors monthly. And their goal is to provide quality healthcare content to Indonesian users. And this is why for them, user experience is really important. And they're interested with AMP because AMP are able to provide them with fast and smooth loading content experiences for their user. And I'm really happy to say, even with reader mode, they are able to see that users spending longer time on the AMP pages versus the non-AMP pages, almost 3 times. So we are really happy to see these successes, and we really want to scale this. Our vision is a WordPress ecosystem where fast websites are everywhere, and AMP is used as the key enabling component. And with that, we can't do it alone. We really need you. We need ecosystem player like you to take part and democratize the speed. And today, I would like to celebrate great contribution from 3 ecosystem players that has bring this vision a reality. First thing first, meet XWP. Of course, you guys know them as a WordPress development agency. But what you guys don't know is that they're not only contributing in commercial projects, they also contribute a lot in the ecosystem project. So I would like to give a shout out to Ryan. Can you stand up? And of course, Mina. So Ryan and Mina, and of course friends from XWP, has contributed a lot to our plugin. Since 2017, we've been collaborating with XWP to bring the latest development of AMP into our plugin. And I'm really excited, and I really hope that more and more ecosystem players like you will also join us. And not only that, of course, as an agency, they also build solutions for their client. And they've been leveraging our plugin to upgrade their offering for reputable names such as Heavy.com, and most recently, Nova Entertainment from Australia. And giving an example for Heavy.com, they've utilized the plugin, and they are able to reduce the first pane loading time from 8 seconds to less than 3 seconds in slow 3G. If you'd like to hear more about this, you can visit XWP website where they publish this case study. And next, I would like to introduce Setka, which is a technology company behind the Setka Editor plugin. And in case you're not so familiar, Setka Editor plugin is what you see, what you get kind of page builder that makes it easier for brands and publishers to build interactive and beautiful content without having to code at all. And they decided that they want their user to not only build beautiful content, but also have their content load really fast. This is why Setka Editor decided to integrate Setka Editor plugin with the AMP plugin. And they tested this solution to one of their clients, which is Real-Time Editor, who happened to choose the transitional mode. And as you can see here, the AMP version look equally beautiful, if not identical, but they load so much faster, not only on the mobile website, but also on the desktop website. And moving on, I'm excited to give a kudos to WP Engine, who happened to join us as well. Stefan and Corey, can you wave? Can we give a round of applause to Stefan and Corey? So WP Engine is a hosting provider, but they also build Genesis Framework. And for those of you who are not familiar, Genesis Framework is a popular theme framework in WordPress. They have empowered over 600,000 domains, and they act as a customizable foundation where you can build WordPress website. And a lot of theme creators actually utilize this foundation to build a child themes. And I'm really happy to say that they decided to include AMP compatibility on their upcoming release of 3.0, which will be out in June. So stay tuned for that. And I'm personally really excited about this news because this will accelerate creation of AMP-compatible themes. And not only that, this will give option to website owners. And just to give you a glimpse of beautiful AMP-compatible themes that you can build with Genesis Framework, here's one example. This page is actually on AMP pages, and you can see it's equally beautiful and perform really well. So that's it from me. Just to recap, we've seen the importance of speed and how that correlates with publishers' win, and that publisher can leverage AMP plugin to achieve this goal and win their users. And most importantly, as developers here, I really hope that you'll be part of this ecosystem and help more and more WordPress users to achieve fast website. With that, I would like to call Alberto back on stage to share with us what's coming up next on the pipeline. Thank you.
That is super awesome. And I would like to give a shout also to Katya and Igor from Setka that are here. And where are you? Yeah, so great work. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so certainly we have gone a long way during the past year, but there is still a lot of road ahead of us to get where we want to be. So to give you just in a nutshell where we are going to be concentrated the year to come until the next Conf, it's basically 4 main areas. The first one is staying in sync with this continuous flow of innovation that keeps coming from the AMP project. So we want to make sure that we stay in sync with the AMP project so that the WordPress ecosystem doesn't meet one bit of it. The second area is we want to expand the capabilities of the plugin in terms of the level of automation that it provides, as well as the developer tooling and guidance that it provides for developers to do the part that they need to develop to do manually. Then we want to make the plugin very easy to use as part of larger ecosystem solutions that remove friction points to bring the power of AMP to the whole WordPress ecosystem. And finally, we want to engage with those ecosystem players on building and developing and advancing those ecosystem solutions. And one more thing. So yesterday, you saw from Hon and John the awesome progress that has been made by the AMP Stories team. And I'm very excited to announce that AMP Stories are coming to WordPress natively via a new capability of the AMP plugin that allows you to create fully featured AMP stories, taking advantage of all the content management capabilities of the WordPress platform. Imagine that you are a writer or a content creator for a WordPress site that belongs to a company that sells travel packages. Your job is to write content pages for advertising and describing the travel adventures that the company sells. With AMP story creation natively in WordPress, you can now expand the experience that you're going to provide to your users by creating awesome AMP stories, embedding them in the content that you create in WordPress, and sharing them just by providing an URL in the domain of your WordPress site. This here is an example site. OK, is that example? Oh, it's not going to work? Yeah. So this card here corresponds to the packages pages. Let's click. I want to go to Rome because my friends from Italy just gave a talk. So we're going to go. And this is a description for the Rome. And this is an AMP story embedded directly on my page. So now we're going to click there. And now the user is imagining how the trip to Rome is going to be, engaging, feeling excited about it. Starting to make plans, dreaming about it. And then at the end of the story, they can go back directly to the site and perhaps buy it. So this is something very exciting because it's going to open up the kind of experience that you can provide to your users. We don't have time to go over a full demo of the editor, but we created this time lapse of the full creation of the story that you just saw to give you an idea, if this is going to work, of how the content creation works for the AMP stories, and also to spark your curiosity. OK, so this is going to be high speed, but I just want to tell you what we wanted to do. Gutenberg is a new editor that it was introduced to the WordPress platform recently, and it's a blog-based editor that has opened a world of possibilities to the WordPress ecosystem. And our main goal was to create an AMP stories editing experience fully integrated with Gutenberg and the general content creation workflow in WordPress. The challenge that we faced was to provide a storytelling creation experience that actually bends Gutenberg to the needs of AMP stories while maintaining the use of the editor as familiar as any other content creation on the platform. And the result, I am happy to say that we are succeeding, is an AMP stories WordPress editor that provides a very intuitive workflow with sensible default. It gives you awesome templates to get you started with awesome story creation very quickly. It provides horizontal navigation during creation, which is actually contrary to the way that Gutenberg works normally in the vertical mode, and many other features that I hope that you're going to go and experiment very soon. The development of the editor is still taking place. It's going to be available in 1.2 version of the plugin. Right now, we are in 1.1. And we are releasing today, or around today, hopefully, there was a little thing that we were fixing, but the beta version of that, of the plugin, so you can download it from the GitHub repository on the AMP project and start playing with it. If you do, please reach out. We are eager to work with you to make this story editing experience as enriching as possible. So this is a lot of information that you can get later from the recording. There are links about the plugin, about the AMP project, the new AMP dev experience that is super duper awesome, and also a link to go and download the AMP Stories beta plugin and start experimenting with it. And with that, thank you very much, and I will see you next year in AmpConf.